Okay, well, I would like to hear it when the Lord says you can release it
Oh, I can release it to certain people, but not like.
corporately. Got it.
48 seconds.
48 seconds. Thank you. I know.
Okay, thank you.
I've got my sweater on because it's always cold in here. I know, I was upstairs and it's always cold up there. I think so. I am, yay. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Nice to see you, ladies.
Hi.
We gotta get some men in here. What's going on? Some testosterone. I love that you guys all brought your lunch. That's so fun. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get started. So we are in the month of Adar, and what I did for this month is I took the opportunity to split a few things up because as we'll talk, we're actually gonna get another go at this month this year. And so with that, it'll be probably a little bit shorter today, and the things that I don't cover today, I'll cover next month when we come back on the third Sunday, all right? So the title here is The Joy is Our Strength. So you all know that scripture verse that the joy of the Lord is our strength. And that really is the precept for this month. So all of the foundations are pretty much built on that and built from that place where the strength in us actually then produces the joy and then likewise. So the joy that we carry produces the strength. And it's really about the unity with the Father, the Lord, with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, that underlying current in us can be joy even when the rest of the world is in chaos, right? So it's a little bit of, I like to also call it like it's order within confusion, right? So we get the opportunity as believers and those that walk with him, we can just cast order and bring order everywhere we go, even though there's chaos, and the same way with joy. We get to bring joy everywhere we go, even when there's turmoil, all right? So I have a few slides at the beginning here, and I always keep them here. Some of them are going to be repeats for people that have been back on the different, coffee conversations, but I put them here for those that are first-timers, so you kind of get an understanding and just the backstory as why we're doing this. So here's one, that walking in season and purpose, which is really the goal of walking through the months, is really to understand what God's purpose is for each season, each month, each cycle, each year, and then align ourselves. So his blessing cycle always looks like this. And it should really, instead of being 4 bullets, it should be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's always breaking up with something, right? It could be a mindset. It could be something in our life, maybe a habit. We're going to break out, we're going to cross over, and then we're going to possess. And that's his best for us. That's how he allows us, like it kind of walks us into blessings. And if you think about it, it really lines up well with everything that we see in the Bible. Like that was really the formula for breakthrough and really, I guess, getting to the place where you can actually ascertain the new territory, right? So they would break up with something, they'd break out, they'd cross over. They're always crossing over, right? I think they went over to the Jordan so many times, and then they would possess. And so that's our formula for breakthrough for ourselves, and God has set it up so that we can get blessed in this whole cycle. And then these are the parts and pieces that we leverage as we go through these coffee conversations, understanding God's seasons and time, is we take a look at prophetic symbols so that we receive additional revelation. We all know we can go ask God questions and he'll give us information. This is just another aspect of what he's already provided for us. So when we take a look at the Bible, we've got things like the tribes, we've got gemstones that were in the ephod, right? So we're also really taking back a lot of what has been stolen from the New Age movement when we talk about these things, right? Because there are parts of us that are like, oh my gosh, I don't know about talking about energy, but that really was something that they did back then, right? They really did have these stones in the ephod, and the stones created an energy, and it actually produced something. So things like that. The Hebrew months create synergy. So when we come into alignment with God's, here I have it's his schedule and pattern that's already been laid out, we really get to have the opportunity to get even more in step with what he's doing and saying. Yeah. I like to say too, like with the revelation, is I always have a slide where it talks about kind of the pitfalls and the obstacles, because that's the other thing that we get the inside scoop to. When we're tracking with what he's already laid out for us, we get to already see what the enemy's schemes are going to be. Like, we're so much smarter when we come into these months. We're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was already there. So here are some of the prophetic symbols. I know I mentioned a few of them just a minute ago, but our seasons, right, our months, the tribes, the gates of Jerusalem, different Bible stories and scriptures. We've got historical events that happen, the constellations, right? Not astronomy, but other way around. Not astrology, but astronomy. The body parts, so really understanding the energetic fields and how everything works together. The Hebrew letters, so there's 22 letters, and we call these the living letters, right? And then also the gemstones, like I mentioned earlier. And the goal with really understanding the symbols here is really providing that understanding and path towards timely blessings and opportunities. So when we start to understand how he's speaking through all of these prophetic pieces, we can then really align ourselves. All right, so when we walk in season and purpose, we also get to go really deep with knowing who God is, right? And I hope that's my personal hope, not just the Welcome Home team, that when you leave these coffee conversations, you're just that much more in awe of who God is and what he does, and just the magnitude of his, his majestic magnitude, if you will, and really just how detailed he is, how like nothing is left undone, and there's always more for us. Does anyone ever follow Rabbi Jason Sobel? Yeah, I think one of the things he always says is, and there's more, right? Because it's like peeling back an onion with God. He's layered and layered and faceted like a diamond, and just so brilliant. Yeah. So the wisdom and knowledge of God, of his ways, really comes to us through the Hebrew language. So it is the letters, it is talking about all of the aspects of the language. And when we connect with God through this life source, if you will, we really get to understand him from a different level than just Old Testament reading, New Testament reading, for example. Because that isn't probably something we're going to start to learn and understand some of the Hebrew aspects. And then lastly, affirmation. So we walk in season and purpose, and what you'll start to find, if you're not already finding, is how much affirmation you'll receive when you get the information up front of what the season or the month is all about, and then as you see your life unfold and you get into circumstances and situations, you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we were just talking about, or this is what was, God already foretold, basically, that these are the challenges that might be in front of me. I know that when I started to learn about the months and the seasons, I would look back, whether it was journal entries that would pop up on my screen, because I do that electronically, and I would go, oh my goodness, that thing that happened was right in season with this thing that God said he wanted to do, And it was kind of cool, and at the same time, I'm like, how did I not know this? I would have responded differently to that situation. So it's all about the equipping of the saints. So our response is so important, as you all know, right? It's really great to get information, but information does not create transformation. So it is always in our response, and that is the goal, is that not only do we hear this and understand it, but then we can apply it. And these are ways that we respond, right? We jump into the scriptures, right? And we read, we meditate, we create declarations, we pray, we journal. We use our imagination, our vision, right? Just like God created us in his image to do that. The prophetic words that we've received, we go back to those and we scour it, mine it for the data. What is God saying? What are the seasons? Inner healing and deliverance, always an opportunity, right? To get more healed at the soul level so that we actually can come into the fullness. And then thought work, which is just a very more, practical approach to changing the things in our life from an action-based place. So the goal with our response is always to maximize the positive patterns in our life, right? And really get rid of the negative ones. And that's, I think, what each month kind of bubbles up, is similar to God, he gives us choice all the time. So there's always a bit of like the yin and the yang. It's like it could be this kind of month or this kind of month, and it's always based on our response. So he's always offering us options, and that's really who he is, right? He's not going to step on our free will. He's so beautiful that way. But it kind of reminds me, did anyone ever use Love and Logic when they were raising their kids when they were younger? It's a parenting methodology, yeah. It's all about choices. So for example, let's say your kids don't want to brush their teeth. So you would say you can either brush your teeth now or in 5 minutes. And it wasn't that and the result was going to be any different, but they had a choice in it. And I feel like that's how God is. He's like, you can do it now or you can do it at the end of the year and miss all of your blessing cycles, you know, like you get to choose. So I choose to get blessed every month and fall in line with this pattern, and I hope you enjoy this. Okay, so last but not least, going back to that response, one of the things we've been producing is a companion workbook with each month. So it'll be set up so that there are sections according to the themes, as you'll see, and there will be activities, whether it's, you know, meditations, that list. We're going to pray. It might be a time where you're going to sit and you're going to imagine something. So it's a directive, right? It's a workbook that gives you steps. It gives you things to think about. And if you would like to receive it for the month, you guys need to sign up online, which is just register for this class, basically. Okay, and then we use that email list and send it out. All right, so just as an FYI, there are many different resources that I go and scour and aggregate all of the information from. These are just a few. Of course, always the Bible, right? And then just a myriad of other resources that are available. And it's not complete and exhaustive. All right, so these are kind of at a high level, if you will, like maybe the agenda items that we go through each month. So we talk about historical events, prophetic pictures and scriptures, common themes, obstacles and pitfalls, and then any questions that you have at the end, or if you want to do coaching or work through anything, just, you know, that's part of what we offer here and allow. Adar 1 is the name of this month. And I think it's maybe there's this next slide. Yeah, I'll get to it. So it's Adar 1. We actually have in this year 2 Adars. And so right now for this next 30 days, it started on February 9th, Adar 1. We're going to go to pretty much the middle of February, or excuse me, middle of March. And then we'll go from the middle of March to the middle of April, and that'll be Adar 2. And we'll get to that. So I like to try to put up a slide that talks a little bit about what was last month about. So we just get a little bit of a refresher to be like, oh yeah, the grounding. I don't know if you guys remember, I was sick last month, really sick. So we didn't actually have a coffee conversation. This is the first time that ever happened, so I apologize. But Shevat, which is the name of last month, was all about checking our root system. So it had a lot to do with trees. The holiday for that month was the festival, the New Year of Trees. So much of what that was about that month was really checking our root system. It's also the time in most agricultural communities, they're checking for harvest, right? What is the potential harvest to come when it's harvest season? So they're checking the trees, they're checking the root systems, they're checking the watering, like checking to make sure that the harvest is going to come. And that really was the essence of last month. And also the choosing the tree of life. So again, God always gives us the option. We get to choose the tree of life or choose our own way and our own thinking, right? And then lastly, being able to discern if we will produce a harvest. So discernment was a big factor this last month, and really coming into, you know, discernment is a gifting that isn't really taught often. Most people confuse it with the prophetic. It is not the same. And so discerning spirits is very different, and it's actually really hard to find teachers that teach on it. But it's so unbelievably necessary as we move into the end times, is to really be able to discern. So I encourage you, if that's interesting to you, to check, you know, kind of dive deeper into discernment and how that gift works and how that would benefit you. And then over the past few months, so seasonally, right, we're in the last month of the winter season. But most of fall and all of winter, at some level, healing and identity has been a huge part of God's focus in those months. Different aspects of it, it's breaking the root system, it's watering the root system, that kind of thing. But these are just some thoughts around why we have been and why God focuses on the healing and the identity. Soul healing is necessary when it comes to our ability to respond righteously, right? When we haven't spent any time really addressing our root system, the things that are rooted in us, either the things that we've allowed or the things that have been passed on, right? We actually a lot of times have a knee-jerk reaction to circumstances in our life instead of a righteous reaction. So when we get those roots kind of pulled up, we get new ones, we kind of do all of the underground work there, we actually then have the potential to respond righteously. So here it says our own triggers can make us self-implode. How many have experienced that? You just trigger yourself in situations, right? And it's because you're dealing with unhealed roots. The reason why you want to do this is you want to break your cycles so you don't keep starting over again. Super profound, right? Part of God's blessing cycle, like let's take care of these roots, pull up the weeds. And it creates self-protection, not outside of God, but in a way that the enemy doesn't get to push your buttons anymore, right? Who doesn't love that? When you can just laugh. You're like, oh yeah, I used to get really upset about that. That's funny. That's good, right? And here we are at our wheel for the month. So that was last month. This month we're coming into Adar, like I said. It's the 12th month, so it's the final month of what's considered the spiritual Hebrew calendar year. And at the bottom there, it's known of this as this for this month. It's known as the month of increasing in joy. It's known as the joy of oneness. And also God is mighty on high, which is that idea of strength, okay? And sometimes people, you'll see that the meaning is strength, the blessing is joy, and we're still in the winter season. And the winter season is a season of victory and joy. That's right. Now notice victory and joy. So often in the Bible, I don't know if it was all the time, I don't know if you can make that statement, but this would be the season that they went to war, right? So they would always war in the springtime, at the end of the winter. This is the season. Okay, I just saw someone's face in the group. It seemed like they might have been a little alarmed. Do you have any thoughts coming up? Yeah. Do you want to share anything?
Now something popped up.
Yes. And that's part of the blessing cycle, right? Like, how do you possess if you haven't crossed over? And so part of that crossing over is warring, right? And it's learning how to war well. And so that's what we all get to ascend to. Yeah, you guys doing okay? Okay. So in our wheel here, the potential blessing is joy. So God ordains your fear to laugh. That's what I think we should expect, okay? So we're not going to bow to our fear. We're not going to give it place. And He's got a place for it, all right? He's got a place for it to be replaced with laughter. The area of healing is still your identity. Sometimes we've seen that in multiple months. This is a different kind of healing. It's before, when it was the root system, it was around the roots. This is now, it's almost like coming from the inside out, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
I do that with the laughing at the worst thing.
Do you? Good.
It doesn't take me too long, but I get it out.
It's powerful.
Yes, it is.
It really is. It changes the atmosphere like that. And it kind of catches them off guard. So the action needed for this month is to look for hidden resources and see God in your circumstances. Okay? Right? The warfare is that the enemy will reap what he sows, and we use laughter as a weapon. The prevalent emotions, these are the things that are going to want to present themselves to you this month, is anxiety, compulsivity, so compulsion there to react, apathy, despair, and stress. Okay? The tribe this month, there's a couple of tribes highlighted this month, but the one that I'm going to focus on is Naphtali. And so this is in Genesis, part of the blessing for Naphtali is it's a doe let loose. He gives beautiful words. Okay? There's so much more. I can only fit so much there. We'll talk about it. The body part this month that's highlighted is the spleen, which filters the blood and balances the bodily fluids. And the action is laughter. So I've just put a couple of scriptures there out of Proverbs around laughter. What was that?
What's the other tribe?
Issachar, which is understanding the times and seasons. Yeah. And then the letter this month is Kuf, is I think how you say it. And it's the back of the head. It's what's behind us. It's final, the least. It means season, cycle, year, circuit, and a time to go around. And then the holidays for this month are both the Feast of Esther and Purim. Now, those are both going to be celebrated in next month, Adar 2, so we'll talk about that. And then just in general, Adar as a month is really a time when we're celebrating certain things ending in our life. So that's part of really coming like kind of almost full circle, because it is the 12th month, where we're going to close things out and close well, right? Not starting new things would be the hope for this month, but that we're actually working towards closing things out and doing that well. Any questions? Yeah.
Because I can't see from far.
No problem.
That circle is just for Adar.
Just for Adar. Yep. So these are kind of those prophetic pieces that we focus in on. Sometimes I change them up a little bit. Like I'll talk about a stone or something like that. But
Will we be able to get a copy of the PowerPoint? Or?
you know what? I might be able to. We have not been in the past posting it online, but I'll see if I can get that posted. Yeah. I know. It's helpful, right? The workbook helps, though, because a lot of this information will be in there, and then it'll be built into activities or exercises.
Is that graphic in there too?
This one?
No, the other one.
Yes, the other one is in it.
So the book is Conversations with God, or?
No, it's just a weekly workbook that we produce each week. And if you're registered for the session, we just use that same email address. Is that it? Yep. So this is something that I just wanted to highlight. This is not specific to Adar. I just felt like it was really profound, and something that we should just have in the forefront of our mind is that right now, most of you know this, but our year is 5784, which is 2024 in our natural world, right? But the 5784 is the Hebrew calendar year, okay? And the thing that's really profound about it is that the 4 is for the door. And what so many of the prophetic voices in our world today are talking about is the double door. So we're in a season, in a time where there's the double door, and we also are in a year right now, which is 5784, where we're having double Adar. Adar. So it's not only a leap year where we get 2 Adars, but we also are in a year where it's double doors. So it's double joy, double doors, right? So there's a lot of opportunity here, and I think the timing, like in Esther as part of all of this, you know, is so profound, because so much of Adar has to do with to really making sure that you're lining up with your calling, right? And who you've been called to be, who you've been created to be, your plans and purposes, the destiny on your life. And I just love the fact that this double door opportunity is also here, along with double ability to step into it with 2 months of Adar. So both the prophets are speaking biblically, numerically, and prophetically about double. So we're seeing so many things lining up in this year across the board that's really different than it has been in the past. We know that in a season of war, right, is when the biggest transfer of wealth happens. And wealth isn't always just money, right? It could come in wisdom. It could come in the form of knowledge, health, of course, finances, and wealth. So when we talk about double opportunity, double doors, double blessings, double portions, this is really a time, I feel, that we should be taking very seriously and being as intentional as we can be. We want to make decisions by faith and not fear, specifically in these next 2 months, this month and next month. And I think on just this note, typically Adar is only 1 month, right? 29 to 30 days. But for us this year, we now have 59 days to plan and prepare for the upcoming year, because this is the 12th month. So we're planning and preparing to go into the next spiritual year.
So is it, sorry,
That was cute.
Adar 2, that's the 12th month also?
It's considered the 13th month, but it's like part 2. And I couldn't, let me see if it's, I don't know if it's here. It is, so I don't know if I have my facts correct on this. I thought it happened every 7 years, but then I found another resource that it actually happens 7 times in 19 years. So I guess we had a double Adar in 2022, but I wasn't doing any teaching on it. When I went back to my notes, I was like, oh, there was a double Adar that year. So that's my understanding, is that we can have a double Adar up to 7 times in 19 years. And so we have one this year. And I don't, in that first bullet there, it talks about it. The Jewish calendar aligns with the moon phases, okay? And that makes the cycle, the days of the year, about 7 days short. So when they get to a certain point, right, in the solar calendar, which is the Gregorian calendar that we follow, needs to be readjusted, and so that's why every however many years they add the 13th month, so that Passover can be properly aligned with the Feast of Esther. So all of those things get in alignment, and then it also was part of the agricultural seasons. So I don't know the background as to why it's like sometimes this month or year and why not this month or this year, but it does happen at least 7 times in 19 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question is, are they consecutive or no? We just have 59 days, but they're not necessarily.
They are consecutive, so it'll go from Adar 1 to Adar 2, so middle February, middle March, middle April. Yep, yep. So holidays that are traditionally celebrated in Adar are the Fast of Esther and Purim, but they're being moved to Adar 2 this year because it's a leap year and we get 2 Adars. So we'll talk specifically about that next month. And then just in general, filled with unexpected and unmasked joy is something that we should really be able to expect in these next couple of months, because that has a lot to do with what these holidays were all about, right? How many of you know about Purim? Is anyone familiar with that Esther story? Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about it next month, but some of the activities that the culture, the Jewish culture, participates in is they have like basically a masquerade party. So it is about this kind of like this joy, and they're expected to just really just party and enjoy themselves. So you know, taking off your mask and really enjoying the joy of the Lord. That's we should. Who said that? Yeah, I like that. Let's do that. Right? Well, and I think Fat Tuesday is always in this season too, which is kind of funny. It's part of that whole masquerade, like you know, Mardi Gras. Yeah, there's so many roots and so many of the different things that come from the Hebrew. All right, so this is the focus for this month. I try to do kind of a succinct one-pager that this is just kind of the focus, right? So it's a month of good fortune, but it can also be dangerous, okay? Again, part of what God offers us, right? You get this or you get this. It really requires some active leadership on our part and personal alignment. And guarding ourselves from idolatry is an area that's kind of where that danger could be. And you'll maybe see it for yourself as you go through these next couple months. Like, where are you seeing things kind of pop up and bubble up that you wouldn't have maybe seen it as idolatry? But like, oh, look at that. That's something that we talked about. It's a month where God ordains your fear to laugh. This is the month when Sarah found out that she was going to be pregnant. Right? And she's what? How old is she? 80, 100, something? Yeah. 90. And so that's a funny thing, right, to come up with. And number 3 there, actively choosing joy is rejoicing. So remembering that joy is actually a verb. It actually, it should move us, right, into an action. Supernatural provision is breaking through into our natural needs. So there's an aspect here where we should experience the supernatural coming into the natural and actually seeing that provision break through for us. Yeah, right? Number 5 there, it's a time for leadership to awaken. So it's the finishing strong in these 2 months, right? We said we need to activate our leadership, but we also need to step into it, right? Not just activate it, but actually move into it. Your true identity and gifts will be reflected spiritually as well as physically. So we should expect that this month, that we know that everything starts on the spiritual realm and then manifests to the natural, okay? Oh, everything starts in the unseen and comes to the seen. That's how things work. That's how he set it up. So when we talk about our identity and our gifts, they're in the unseen, and we should see them coming forward after these next 2 months. And hopefully you're finding some new ones that you didn't have before, right? We want to remove the cloak of heaviness for garments of praise. So we're making that exchange this month, right? And I've split, one of the themes is joy. I've split it up so that we'll do praise and rejoicing next month. And this month we'll focus on another aspect of joy. So the root of depression and despair will break into faith. So it's something we should expect. And as you stay in his timing, he will supernaturally align you. So keep that in mind.
That's 7, that's my number.
All right, I love it. And then because it's the 12th month, we always take a look at the numbers, right? Like God's in all of it because he created all of it. The 12th month is known for, it's really the number that signifies divine government or governmental perfection. It's found in all of the multiples that have to do with ruling. Okay, so here are some examples. There's 12 signs in the zodiac that completes the great 360-degree circle of the heavens, which is 12 times 30, and there's 12 months that complete a year. So the 12 months rule the year, right? And then we've got the signs, the sun rules the day, and the moon and stars rule the night. So they're the governing aspects of the evening. And we always split our days into 12 and 12, right? There's 12 hours for the day, 12 hours for the evening. 12 is also a product of 4 and 3. 3 is significant because it's perfectly divine and heavenly. That's what the number 3 will represent. And 4 is that it's earthly, material, and organic. So going back to seeing that manifestation of the heavenly coming into the earthly, the organic, we should see a real physical manifestation at the end of Adar. And notice that I have bolded multiplied. This is not about increase smallly. This is about multiplication. We have the real potential in Adar to receive multiplication, not a plus sign, but a time sign. All right, let's go. So in the Bible, these are some things that are representative of 12. So Jesus, his first written words, recorded words, were at the year 12 years old. That comes off in Luke 2. There are 12 persons anointed in the Bible. 5 were priests and 7 were kings. And there were 12 judges. So again, judgment, governing, ruling. There were 12 patriarchs from Seth to Noah, and then 12 more from Shem to Jacob. So significant number there. 12 apostles in the New Testament. That's government, right? So again, going back to divine government and governmental perfection. 12 foundations in the heavenly Jerusalem. That's in Revelations. It's 12 times 12. And then there were 12 stones taken out of the Jordan and 12 spies. So remember the story of the spies, right? Like some really got to enter into the promised land only when they had their mind set that God was with them and that this wasn't going to be a problem. There were so many other 12s that this screen would have looked. Yeah, there's 12 tribes, 12 gemstones, 12 gates, 12 stars, 12 angels. There is the number of 12 is all over the Bible. Really significant. All right. So the first theme is joy for this month. And it's going to be, the focus is how do we do joy in war? All right. Like everyone's like, what? They don't seem to go together. What was that?
When you kill your enemies, you have joy?
Yes, I think at the end of it, yes. But I think the Lord is calling us to war with joy. So we have,
War with joy.
yeah. So how do we, in a season of turmoil, in a world of turmoil, how do we have joy? And then, like it's part of the victory, right? The crossing over and possessing. What were we going to say, Sue?
Because we have the confidence that he's with us.
I think so.
Well, praising him, calling on his name, and doing everything by checking into what he says about it first, that should provide the joy.
I think
right
so.
there.
Because it elevates your belief.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a couple of ideas here when it comes to the joy in war. Is one, the first one there is clinging to what God has given you or told you. Sometimes we need to go back to our prophetic words, right? Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of what he said, right? And that could be anything from a wayward child, right? To, just a scripture verse that he has highlighted to you, that you just know that that's a promise for you. And it's really being able to keep your eye on the harvest. And if the enemy can steal your joy, he can steal your promise. That's right. And so that's, again, a lot of what this month is about. You're closing out a year, a spiritual year, and you really want to make sure that you are not leaving any promises on the table, right? Promises are a lot like your calling, your assignments, the blessings, it's all of that kind of baked in. Cheerful giving is another way to have joy during wartime. So you want to seed your finances, right? And you also want to copy your Father. He gave the most precious thing that he could, and we're made in his image. So moving yourself into that kind of position during this time to produce the joy and step into joy. And then lastly, remember all of the overturned circumstances in your own life that have happened, right? I always love how, I think it's a really kind of a more of a Jewish mindset, but their idea is like, if you want to have greater faith, remember more. So if you want to increase your faith, remember, right? Everything is about remembering for them so that their faith is increased. So it's one of our ways that we can increase our joy here. So here's the tribe of Naphtali. I'm going to just sprinkle little pieces like this throughout the themes. Naphtali is a really fun tribe. I don't know if you guys know about this particular tribe. They first and foremost, they were always listed last, which is really fascinating. They carried a humility about them, and it wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't a problem for them to be last because of everything that they carried. Have you ever been in those situations where maybe you're last or whatever, or you didn't get picked for something? I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Right? That's a good. But because you're so confident with what you carry, it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't even take it like a slight, against you or as an issue or an offense, right? So this is, I think, a lot of what Naphtali carried, is that they were the cheerful and swift messengers. So they literally had a job where they would be messengers back and forth, almost like the Pony Express. They carried answers, and they were known to carry answers. They were obedient and did not procrastinate. And think about that. That's that active leadership, right? When you hear the Lord say something, you get that person on your mind that you're really sure you should text, or that money that $20 that you should give that person, or a check to the ministry, whatever it is. Like, be quick to be obedient, especially during this month, so you're seeding for the future. They had quick producing soil. So when Moses gave Naphtali this blessing, he said, take this land here, and it was always around the water source. So their soils were super, super productive, and it was a blessing to both the farmers and the shepherds. So this was really fertile soil. They demonstrated a commitment to help others, again, going back to the shepherds and the agricultural piece. It wasn't about what can I get for myself. It was very much for everyone. They really lived the lifestyle of being blessed to be a blessing. Like, it wasn't what can I take for myself, it's what can move through me so that we can all have it. And one part of the blessing in Genesis is that he's fully satisfied and fully favored. So that is really the full picture of this tribe, and what we should kind of emanate, if you will, right? Copy for this month. If you don't have it naturally, just refer to this list and remind yourself that these are the aspects that when we can partner it with this month, we get to multiply at that level that we really want to.
Does their tribal name have a significant meaning?
Not that I know of. Well, so excuse me, I take that back. Yes. So in Genesis, when they are named, So for example, when Naphtali was named, it was it Bilhah's mate? It was Rachel's maiden. So this is one of Rachel's sons. Bilhah was the maiden, and she had Rachel had been competing with Leah, her sister, and so the name Naphtali means like I wrestled with my sister and won, or something like that. So there is, so again, back to the victory, right? Like his prophetic pieces are in every single thing. So yes, the names do have a meaning. I was thinking more you were asking about the letters, and I'm like, well, I'm not really sure about that. Hey, you. But yes, so if you go back and read the way they're each named, all the tribes, the sons, you'll see the backstory kind of embedded in their name. All right, the second theme is illusions. So this is also a month of illusions. Normally, when there's only one Adar, we would be talking specifically about maybe Purim, right? So all of the illusions that are embedded in that story. We'll talk about that next month. But I want to talk a little bit about masks and how they really help and hurt our identity, right? So masks don't have to be a bad thing if they're used for the appropriate purposes. So the first bullet there, it says, are you wearing a mask or being hidden? So this month, because we have two Adars to address all of this, I would love for us to be diving deeper with the Lord on that. Are there places in our life where we're wearing a mask, and is it for the reason of being hidden or because there's pain, right? So the second bullet there says that, hidden and masked identities can provide influence and cover. So for the example of maybe with Esther, like she was hidden, right, so that she could then step into a place and have influence and make a change. So that's a good way of using a mask, right? But this next one is, pain and masked identities can be barriers to intimacy with both people and God. So this is a month, right, when identity is a part of the work. We want to be getting to this level, which is the outer level, not so much the roots. Hopefully you've been working on the roots up until now. But looking to see, are there places in my life where I still wear a mask, where maybe I'm people-pleasing, for example, because I'm concerned that if I really show up the way I want to show up, they're not going to like me, right? Those parts of that, when we do those things, we're really not taking care of our soul, right? We're basically showing up as liars, right? So it all is connected, and it's something really to bring to the Lord. But anyway, removing a mask can really increase our joy. That kind of a mask, right? If you think about it in your life. And then number 2 there, when it comes to the illusions, God could feel, and it might be perceived that he is hidden this month, but it's really an illusion. Okay, I want you to expect that he's in all of it, and he's just having a really good time getting ready to surprise you with something. Okay, it's part of that expectancy. And then number 3 there, prosperity may feel like an issue, but it is an illusion. Another area where we might start to see like, oh, this really feels desperate, and it is just an illusion. So check into that when it comes to your prosperity.
So can you expound on that one, because I don't know.
Yeah, so prosperity can be anything from your health to your wealth, right? And everything in between, the things that we identified earlier. And the enemy will come to you presenting it a certain way as an illusion, right? And so for example, let's say there's something with the finances, and the illusion is that you're not going to have enough. But we know who our daddy is, right? Like all the storehouses, all the cattle, right? So we need to push back, past the illusion and actually remind ourselves that the prosperity is there. It's actually available. Okay. Yeah. Okay. War strategies. So that's the next theme for us, is war strategies. So here are some examples of ways that we can war this month and strategies that we might want to have in place to support us. So guard and maintain your joy in turmoil. So what's your plan? Not many times do we come in with a plan for the month. We want to expect joy. We want to look up, right? That's what Jesus told us to do. Don't navel gaze, right? Don't look at your circumstances, but have a plan to expect the joy and look up. And if you don't have a plan to maintain it, guess who's got a plan to steal it? Okay? Again, part of the yin and the yang of the month, like God's always giving us options, but it requires us to step in and take a part. We also want to understand the schemes of our enemy. What are the signs? In Luke it talks about we should see the signs when things are getting to this place of war. We'll see shifting nations, but if a nation shifts, it has to first happen at the kingdom level, and that's the supernatural level, the spiritual level, the unseen. So we want to be smarter than the enemy, and we want to start looking at this aspect in order to prepare for war, right? And the enemy always wants you to get out of time and sync with what God's doing. So that's the name of the game, right? If he can bump you out of your blessing cycle, good.
But it sounds contrary to me. The enemy wants you to get out of time and sync with what is happening prophetically. So he wants you to not only not have time, it sounds like he
It's a
wants you to
typo.
go with, oh, okay.
It should be out of sync.
I'll leave it alone.
It should be out of time and out of sync.
Prophetically, that it was a typo. I'm so sorry.
I apologize. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I must have made an error there. But it is. It's both out of time, so out of his cycle, seasons, and then out of sync. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. So this is something I'd like to introduce to you. I think it's very effective. It's one of my mentors has shared this with me. He calls it the grid. And it's a way to bring yourself into a position to receive all of the blessings, is the way I describe it. So it's an acronym. The G is for gratitude, the R is for rejoice, the I is for imagine, and the D is for decrease. This will be in your workbook. So the gratitude is we want to reflect on ways you've already seen the supernatural provision or breakthrough in your life. And you really want to spend time really allowing the doors to open for the new dimensions. We want to then move into rejoicing, right? So rejoice, and you will have joy, because that's what it says, is joy is a verb. And rejoice in the Lord always.
Rejoice in what manner?
How-
Worship? Prayer? Does it matter?
You get to choose.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gratitude is the first one, and then rejoice is. Okay.
But it should be an action. It should be something that we do. And then we want to imagine. So we want to use our imagination. And this is where we see we can overturn depression, despair, worry, and heaviness by seeing the release of his supply. So when you go into your imagination, you want to go into everything from, a special place where you meet Jesus to a scripture verse or a story, but you're imagining what it looks like when he releases his supply. If you're struggling with depression, what does it look like when Jesus enters the room in your imagination and changes depression to whatever it is that you're asking for, joy, right? And then decrees. Bill Johnson always says nothing happens in the kingdom without a decree first, which is fascinating, right? Because when you think of like the old world ways, like decrees were the way the king always made things happen. So it's not any different for us, right? So nothing happens in the kingdom without a decree. And according to, the story of Esther, a part of that was about decrees. And we'll talk again more specifically next month. But there was a time for decrees set against you to be broken. So, so decrees are a big deal, and you'll see that in your workbook. The body part is the spleen, and the action for this month is laughter. I won't spend too much time on this because we had it in the wheel and I talked through it. But I will point out that second to the last bullet there, the spleen meridian is active from 9 to 11 a.m. So every day from 9 to 11, watch that. Watch to see if those emotions, anxiety, compulsivity, apathy, despair and distress start to come about around that time. And then have a plan on how to fill yourself with joy during that time in the morning. Joy leads to laughter. So these are the two, when laughter is our action for this month, these are the two types. You guys probably know this, most of you, but in the Hebrew, one, like we use the word joy to express joy. In the Hebrew, there's like 10 different words for joy, and they're all multiple, they're expressions of joy. So the two that I'm highlighting, one is simcha, which is when something good happens that makes you happy. But the other one, sasan, is unexpected joy. This is what Sarah experienced when she found out she was pregnant. It was unexpected joy, and you're more happy, and you like start laughing because it just takes you by surprise, all right? It's not just something that makes you happy, it moves you to laughter. So when you think about this month and just the joy, there's two kinds is what we're really highlighting. So look for the kind that's just gonna make you happy, and then some that's just gonna move you to laughter, and feel free to use that as your weapon with the enemy. And lastly, this is your fourth theme, expectancy and increase. So when we have a double Adar, it's also associated with pregnancy and giving birth, okay? So your input will determine your output, remember that, and we want to prepare for the double portion like Elijah, but you have to be part of the activation. We need to declare out loud about ourselves that we will not lack knowledge. We will not perish because of a lack of knowledge. And then we want to make sure that we're meditating on the things that God spoke about there in Philippians 4:8. So that's a way to activate the increase in the expectancy. And then this is the same month when Jesus told Peter to get the coin out of the fish's mouth and pay their taxes. So this is something that I always kind of think about is what he can get to me, he can get through me, right? So whether that's finances, so I can bless other people, whether that's supernatural giftings and power. You will make me rich and add no sorrow. That is a scripture verse. Prosperity is not a movement, right? It's a covenant act. And then lastly, your prosperity, the way you prosper me, is so that I can answer my call. This isn't about getting rich. Right? It's being able to step into what he's called you to do and actually then go the distance, which again, 12th month, we're closing out strong, people. I feel like my light got a little dim here. All right. So I want you to remember, because Adar is around your calling and really making sure that you're closing out well, I want you to think of your calling like a spiritual child. It demands as much attention as a child. Like, I feel like sometimes I interact with folks and, I'm gonna pick on my retired friends. You still have a calling, right? Or maybe we're just not taking real seriously the plans and purposes that God has on our life. We're not investigating that part of our life. We're just kind of going through the day-to-day and just doing our best, right? But there's really more to it, right? That we want to have attention set aside to really go after the call on our life. We want to act like we're expecting, like we're getting ready to birth, and it's full of promise. And then just a reminder, we have 59 days this year. So this is a huge gift to have a double portion and a double Adar, and really experience the enlargement of our call. I really feel like that's what he's wanting to do, is use all 59 days to really get us in a place where we're not just getting ready to birth, but we get the opportunity to feel. Do you remember, for those of you that have been pregnant, the last month you got huge? Like, it was a pound a week that the baby carried between all the fluids and everything else, where in the very beginning it was ounces, right? It was a half pound here and there. But at the end, the multiplication is huge. We should expect the same in this 12th month. This is where the multiplication is. So if that encourages you to get focused, please do. Allow that to be your encouragement. Here's the letter Kaf, which is the 19th letter. The meaning, I talked a little bit about it. I know we're out of time, so I don't want to, actually I have 2 minutes. What? So the meaning is, so this is the letter here on the right, just so that you have it. What is behind is final, least. The pictogram is the back of the head. So this is considered the back of your head. And one of the things that I was looking into was how, when it comes to those that are messianic, right, they're also looking at that as that second bullet under number 2, is that it's Yahweh's hand, so God's blessing, protecting us and encircling us, which I think is so beautiful. And it has a lot to do with our thinking this month, right? We can't get to our promised land if our thoughts aren't right. Like, the thinking is so key. This is also the picture, and from the Hebrew, where they say it looks like a monkey. So it's the monkey with its tail, and that's where we get the term to monkey around and the joy this month. And so similarly to how a monkey will use its tail to hop from one to another, it's supposed to be a liken to us being able to flip circumstances this month very easily and not have much trouble with that. Yep. And then down at the bottom here, I've got the expansion of the letter, just, you know, that it's really, when it comes to it being the head, it's the place of process. Thoughts become the completed work. Are you prepared for the thoughts that you're meditating on to be the completed work this month for your year? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, right? Yeah? So it should be his word in us, right? It's also to copy. So we're imitating God. So let's make sure that our thoughts are coming into alignment. So we're copying and producing the completed work that we want at the end of this year. And then Yahweh raises us up from the depths of bondage. So going back to the identity and the whole story of Esther again, which will be next month, but that this is all part of God's plan, is that, you know, crossing over and possessing, so pulling us up and out. The obstacles and pitfalls, bowing to the hesitancy within us, okay? You're probably gonna experience some of that this month, right? Because you're gonna feel that call to action, to move into whatever parts of your calling are there in front of you, and you're probably gonna feel a little hesitancy. There's gonna be the risk of resisting the unknown, so you'll stop moving in faith. Remember, we said we're not gonna move in fear, we're gonna move in faith this month. Letting the unknown steal your joy, so not having a plan for not having your joy stolen, and thinking that what you did before is going to work, okay? We're coming into a new season here. And here's your summary, last slide. Embrace the gift that God has for you, and then the grace to operate in it comes. So many times we're waiting for the grace, we're waiting for the power, we're waiting for something, and that is not how he works. He says, you take a step, I take a step. It's a partnership, it's a relationship, right? He's always process. So you embrace it, and then the grace to operate in it comes. And if you hesitate, the gift won't birth and the grace won't come. That's just how it works. So you get to wait to another cycle. So making sure that your soil is ready. Is your soil ready to birth? Receive the gift, which is the increase by faith with love and hope, and express the expectation and resist the devil's oppression. Amen. All right, thank you for coming. Excited to see you. I can't wait to hear your stories next month, yeah? Come back and share how this was relevant